The trend is clear. People are buying homes later and later in life, even first-time home buyers. But is that what's wise? When is the best time to buy a house? I've got that and more coming up. My name's Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. If you wait to have kids until you're financially ready, you'll never have kids. And I think houses are becoming that same sort of thing. It used to be several decades ago that owning a home was part of the American dream. And I actually think with housing affordability and how stretched things are, I could see in a couple decades that could be another thing. Like I would love to own a home, I just can't afford it. We're somewhere in between right now. It feels like houses are similar to having kids. If you wait until you're financially ready to buy a house, you'll never buy a house because it just seems like such an enormous commitment. So what do the trends say? The trends are very, very clear. People are buying homes later in life, especially first-time home buyers. This is pretty staggering data. This chart is just absolutely wild that all buyers, the average home buyer age last year, 2024, was age 56. Age 56. Now, how is that broken down? Repeat buyers, the average age was in their 60s. And that means first-time home buyers, the average age 38 years old for a first-time home buyer. Guys, just a couple of years ago, this was around 33, and a couple decades ago, this was in the late 20s. It is very clear that people are buying houses later in life, and it's clear why as well. With housing affordability stretched, right? Home values are a lot higher than they were just even a few years ago, and mortgage rates now significantly higher, property taxes higher, the cost to insure the home higher as well. It's becoming more and more unaffordable to buy a house. Looking at the profile for first-time home buyers for last year, like I said, median age, average age around 38, typically married couple, median or average household income just under $100,000, and average down payment around 9%. That's the profile of the first-time home buyer. So here's the question, okay? If this is the trend and we understand why, how does this apply to you, or how does it apply to your kids? What's the best time to buy a house, specifically your first house? I would encourage you to buy a house as soon as you're ready. As soon as you're ready, but no sooner than that, okay? So I would encourage you to buy that home, but make sure that you're ready and you've got some guardrails first. Why would I say that? Two primary reasons. One, I would want you to build equity in your home. This is the reason why it was part of the fabric of that American dream so many years ago, is because people wanted to build equity in an asset that could appreciate over time. This for many people was, and for a lot of people still is, your biggest asset that you own. And so owning that asset and beginning to build equity, I'd want you to start that process as soon as you can afford to do so. So that's the primary reason, building equity. When you're renting, you're not building any equity. You're paying, in many cases, more than what a mortgage payment would cost, and so you're paying more on a monthly basis. Yeah, you don't have maintenance and some of the headaches, but you're not building equity, okay? So that's the primary reason. But the secondary reason is you leverage inflation. You're not a victim of inflation. You leverage inflation. You're not a victim of inflation. And here's why I say that. When you lock in your mortgage, okay, typically a 15-year or 30-year mortgage, that rate that you're paying, it should be fixed. It's typically fixed. And therefore, that monthly mortgage payment is not susceptible to changes to inflation. Yes, your escrow portion of your monthly payment is, but the principal and interest is not, okay? It's fixed, and it doesn't go up with inflation. But what does go up with inflation? The value of your home. And it's not gonna be exact, it's not gonna be perfect, and there's a lot of other factors involved, maintaining a house and the school district and where it is and all that sort of stuff. But on average, your home value should go up with inflation, while your mortgage payment shouldn't and won't, right? Contrast that to renting. The rent that you pay, will it go up with inflation every single year like clockwork? Maybe not, but it will over time. Spread that out over a long period of time, your rent will increase with inflation. Therefore, I would want you to buy a house as soon as you're possibly ready, but no sooner than that. And I would give you that urgency because I want you building equity and I want you leveraging inflation. So how do you know when you're ready? And that's the $64,000 question. That's why you need to work with your certified financial planner. There's 6 areas to your financial life, my financial life, everyone's financial life. Buying a home is obviously right in the middle of that first area, present financial position, but it's going to impact the other 6 areas of your financial life as well. And so often, financial success is measured in balance. And what a lot of people get wrong when they're buying a house is they buy a certain size house or a certain value house, and it makes their financial life off balance. Okay, you want to make sure there's balance. So 3 tips to help you do so. First, aim to have at least 20% as a down payment, but on your first home that may not be feasible. So then I would target at least a 10% down payment. Why 20%? You're likely aware of this. It avoids private mortgage insurance, an extra fee that you would pay every single month until you reach that 20% equity and then apply and ask the bank nicely, hey, will you please remove this fee? It's just an extra cost the bank charges because there's more risk. You don't have as much equity in the house, and therefore if the value of the home goes down or something changes, the bank is on risk. For your first home, say you're buying a house for $150,000, and I have no idea where you live, but here in the Midwest, that's still possible, even a little bit below that. 20% down, 150, you'd have to come up with 30 grand as someone just entering their career or in the early stages of their career. That's a pretty difficult thing to do, but I'd aim for at least 10%, and I would sacrifice to build up at least 10% that you can put down as a down payment. You're still going to have private mortgage insurance, but it's going to get you to that 20% equity number much, much faster, and therefore the number of years or how long you'll have PMI will be significantly reduced. So aim for 20% down payment, figure out a way to do that. But if you can't get 20% down payment, get to at least 10, and therefore you can build equity even faster. Second, make sure that you're not house poor. House poor. What do I mean by that? Make sure that your mortgage payment, including your escrow, is less than 30% of your take-home income. There's a lot of rules of thumb out there. You can't run your financial life based on rules of thumb, but I would echo this one. Make sure that your monthly mortgage payment, and this includes escrow, is less than 30% of your take-home income. And this is where things get stretched, because if you're going to fit the house within that budget, well, you might not be in the neighborhood that you want, might not have all the features or the bedrooms or the square footage, and yet you might make this arrangement, this deal with yourself, negotiate with yourself. Well, I will say no to some other things in my financial life by saying yes to this nicer house, and it will stretch the budget. That might work for a week or a month or a year, but eventually it'll be harder and harder to continue to say no to these other things. You've already said yes to the house, and what it ends up meaning is there's this imbalance in your financial life where you've already said yes to this house, but in order to save up as much as you want for retirement, you're unable to do so. Save up for that vacation, you're unable to do so. Save up for that next vehicle, you're unable to do so. And so make sure that you've got guardrails as to how much of your cash flow you'll allow your mortgage to be 30% or less of your take home. And then finally, when buying a house, especially when buying your first house, expect that you're going to stay there for at least 5 years. Expect that you're going to stay there for at least 5 years. Doesn't mean that you will, but don't buy a house that you expect, oh, we're going to get out of this thing within a year or two. Why? Okay, why? Well, going back to the reasons why I said you want to buy a house as soon as you're ready, so have some urgency there, is so that you start building some equity. Well, every time you sell a house, there are fees related to that, okay? And there's also tag-along fees when you're buying a new house. When you buy a new house, sometimes you're also buying paint. You're buying furniture, you're buying lamps, you're buying some other things. I call it the 6-month fog. As soon as you buy a house, there's all sorts of other expenses that you don't really anticipate, but you sort of are saying yes to when you buy. And therefore, if you move too quickly, you're sort of taking one step forward and then a couple steps back financially. The other thing is, when you buy a house, you might not be able to sell it as quickly as you think. And so one of the one of the mistakes a lot of first-time home buyers make is they buy a house they think they can afford, and then immediately within a year or two they're looking to move. Well, you haven't built up enough equity, and so you're strained on that down payment for that next house and the monthly payment as well. And so don't buy a house that you don't plan on staying in for at least 5 years. When's the ideal time to buy a house? As soon as you possibly can, but no sooner than that. And those are 3 tips to help get you started. But buying a house and how much you can afford, that is a financial planning decision. It's got to fit within all 6 areas of your financial life to ensure that there's balance and you're on track for financial success. So work with your CFP on that. If you don't have a CFP on your team, you can contact one on my team. Find us online. wisemoneyshow.com is where you can find us. Korhorn.com as well. Korhorn with a K. Or give us a call, 574-247-5898. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.